my name is Andrew. I got involved in the startup scene actually as the development director for Startup Calgary, who is a co-host of this event. So I was on the other side of this equation not too long ago. I was actually organizing events much like this one to basically help entrepreneurs get themselves off the ground and then help them grow their business. We did all sorts of events. Mobile Monday was one of them, and it's good to see it kind of getting picked back up here, and a good audience involved. So lots of faces I've seen before, lots of new faces, which is great. During my time at Startup Calgary, I also met my co-founder for TikTiks, Johnny, at an event much like this. Actually, it was a hack night. If you guys haven't heard of that, every Tuesday at Assembly, I believe, there's hack nights. It's hosted by different groups, so I think there's a Ruby one, there's a WordPress one. If you're ever looking to just kind of pick a bunch of programmers' brains, or if you're going to recruit, that's a good place to do it. But that's where we first met, and it was interesting because we sat down and we said, you know, let's talk about something, and we both connected over our love for sports. I have the benefit of watching the Flames in the background, so if I ever get really distracted and I celebrate, it's because we're actually playing right now at home, and we sold a good set of tickets for tonight's game. So it's kind of cool that we can kind of come back and come full circle here. So anyways, this is about a year and a half or 2 years ago. Johnny and I sat down and we said, you know, this is, we really like the Flames, this is good, this might be a cool year for us, we don't know what's going to happen. And Johnny says, you know, I've been a season ticket holder for the Flames for about 10 years now, and I always have this same problem. I buy 41 games worth of tickets, I can't go to every game, and when I can't go to a game, I got to figure out what to do with my tickets that I can't use. And I said, that's kind of interesting, that sucks. And you know, he says, I'm getting busier and I can't go to more and more games every year, and this is becoming more of a problem, but I don't want to lose my spot in line. I don't want to have to give up my season tickets. And I said, that does sound like an interesting problem. I think with digital tickets going on right now, we could probably solve that. And he says, well, look, I kind of already did something like that. I actually created a Facebook group, and I invited my other season ticket holder friends, and I said, that's pretty cool too. And he said, you know, how many people are in this group? And he says, there's about 500 or so. 500 people, that's pretty interesting. And he's like, yeah, some of them are season ticket holders, but most of them are just people looking for cheap tickets. So we monitor it, we make sure people don't list above face value, and we just make sure that people get connected with other people within this community of sports fans to buy and sell tickets in a better way than they already are right now. And I said, that is pretty interesting. Let's sit down and take a look. And sure enough, you know, every game day there's 10 plus, 20 plus transactions going through and getting facilitated by this Facebook group of 500 people or so. And I said, that is really cool. I think you're right, and I think we can actually build something really, really simple to solve the last piece of this problem. Yes, they're connecting with each other within the group. Yes, they're finding maybe like-minded individuals and people that they trust to transact with. But at the end of the day, once a seller found someone that could buy their tickets from them, they would have to arrange a face-to-face transaction or organize a digital transaction to complete it. So there's a lot of this talk going on. I'll meet you down south at Mackenzie Lake when the game's on in 2 hours, and you could bring cash, and I promise I won't bring a knife and stab you, yada, yada, yada. A lot of that talk. And then the digital side of things, there's for every, you know, 100 transactions that go through that are good, there's one that someone gets ripped off on, and that one transaction leads to a huge kind of fear-mongering side in the community of people just saying, like, I really don't trust this guy. You know, how do I know who's going to send what first, and how do we actually organize that? And so we said to ourselves, you know, this is something that we could probably solve really, really easily, and that was 2 years ago, and boy, we were ever wrong. What we really quickly realized was that this is a complex problem. There is a lot of thinking that goes into it, and I think I probably skipped a couple slides, but essentially what we ended up with, yeah, we'll skip right to that one. So the problem, this is the seller side of it. So the problem is Johnny buys all these games, he can't go to a bunch of them, he struggles to get them or to give away those tickets. He ends up usually calling his friends, his family, trying to offload them, and by the time the game time comes around, those tickets are still worth something, but he's giving them away for free simply because he can't use them, and he wants someone to go. So from a venue perspective, there's also a lot of empty seats in the house. We learned that from other international sporting events and organizations that were saying, you know, we have to sell out these events. So when USA and Canada play, we actually bundle those tickets as a whole for hockey events, and you have to buy 4 or 5 other games worth of tickets as well. Things like that, tactics so that they could actually sell out crowds. But a sellout, we all know, doesn't mean that the stadium's full. It really just means that all those tickets were sold on the primary level. Secondary ticket market will always go on after that. So I think we can skip to the next one. This is the interesting side of things. So Johnny was on the seller side of that transaction. I was on the buyer side. I love going to hockey games. I'm a big hockey fan. Love my Flames this year. Rest in peace, playoffs, and all Canadian teams as well. But I was often finding myself on the other side of this. I was looking for last-minute tickets to go to a game, something like tonight. So at 5 o'clock, maybe I was like, hey, you know what? I would love to go to the game tonight, but I don't have my hands on tickets. Where can I find them? I would scour Kijiji maybe. I would maybe look on StubHub, but then there's this whole US dollar thing that's going on that I don't really like. I would reach out to friends and people like Johnny that I knew had tickets, and maybe he's already sold them or he is going to go to the game. There was kind of this other side of the equation that that really resonated with me. It was really relevant. Believe it or not, the secondary broker markets that are out there right now, so this is the StubHub and Ticketmaster exchange. Out of a show of hands, who's used StubHub in the past? Who's used anything else, Ticketmaster or some other? So the way that these generally work, and this is where we got really excited about trying to solve this problem, being really passionate about it. This is the typical scenario that goes on for a platform like that. Seller wants to sell his tickets. Generally, this is a broker or someone that buys tickets specifically so that they can turn around and flip them or scalp them. They'll buy tickets, they'll post them on something like StubHub, and StubHub will say, that's great, you want to post it for $30, we're actually going to post it for $35. And they post it for $35, and then by the time the buyer actually transacts with it and takes it away, they mark that price up, that $35 up about 20%, and they're actually checking out with a 38% markup on the original ticket posted by a secondary market. Now that ticket was actually put into the season ticket holder's hands or the broker's hands from Ticketmaster, who already marked that original price up. So what you have is a misdistribution of value and for who's creating it. So if the team that like a Flames or artists, this is a really popular thing for. Pearl Jam was the first one to come out and say this is actually absolute BS. They said, wait a second, you're marking these tickets up, you're selling them back to brokers, and then you're letting them sell for 20% markup, and by the time you're checking out, this ticket is now, that I sold to Ticketmaster for $50 is now going for $100 on the open market. And Pearl Jam and the Flames are coming back and saying, we created that value. We're creating the hype and the buzz behind this. People want to come see us. They don't want to come see Ticketmaster sell us tickets. And there's a huge disconnect between what's actually going on and the way that we interpreted the secondary market. So we came in and we said, we could do this better. We can solve this problem. And how hard can it really be? And that was when we kind of sat down and we hashed out. This is the startup story coming out now. We said, there's about 10 things that we have to build in order for this whole thing to work. In order for TikTiks to succeed, we have to build these 10 features. And then we sat down and we said, well, we can't afford that. and we don't have enough time, and this is really hard, and we don't even know if that's actually what needs to be solved. So from our startup perspective, we sat down and we said, wait, let's cut that back to the 3 or 4 main components that we're going to build that is going to prove our assumptions right or wrong. We think that people want to buy and sell tickets with each other differently than they do right now. That was an assumption. We weren't sure. We didn't know if that was the case. We thought that if we could do it in a cool way, people would pay for it, whether it's on the seller side or the buyer side. We didn't know that that was the case. We just assumed that was, and we assumed that if that wasn't true, it wouldn't work. We assumed that that sellers didn't want to pay for a service like that, so we didn't charge them for it. And what we came up with was actually the next slide here, which is 4 kind of key points. So all we really wanted to do was allow sellers to post a ticket for sale on the app for a price that they wanted to. We would then turn around and post it for that selling price. We weren't going to mark it up at all. We would let buyers browse through our list of inventory. We'd also notify them if they had a preference for what kind of tickets they wanted to see when they got posted. We would let them buy those tickets from within the app, and we'd also send them a digital copy that they could open up from within the app. So our thinking was, if I'm sitting down here at Brewster's and there's a game on at 7 p.m. and it's about half an hour now, and someone comes along and says, oh, shoot, I can't go to this game anymore, I want to get rid of these tickets, and they posted them on the app, so this is a Johnny and me conversation, and they posted them, and I got notified that said, hey, there's tickets in your price range and in your preferred section that became available. Do you want to go to the game tonight? And I was down here anyways. I would be prompted, I would be tempted to actually say yes. And if I could buy those tickets, not have to worry about printing them off, go to the venue, open my phone up and scan them at the door, would I use that? So that whole process became our goal from the beginning. Basically, the ability to post tickets for free on the app, the ability to buy them on the app for a certain fee, and doing that all within a 2 to 3 minute turnaround time. If we could figure out a way to do that, that was kind of our early assumption of what we thought we needed to prove. So we won't get there yet, but that's kind of the story about TikTiks and where we ended up. We launched, and this is kind of a cool story, we did this in the background as we opened up this Facebook group and said, you know what, first step is we got to grow this community. excuse me, we got to grow this membership Facebook group. We got to just open it up a little bit. We were pretty stiff about who we let in and who we didn't. We wanted to make sure that they were actually Flames fans. We wanted to make sure that people weren't going to get ripped off, all that sort of things. But at that point, we just said, let's just let it run and see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it, but we'll kind of just let it grow. And sure enough, 500 became 2,000 within, a couple months or so. 2,000 became 3,000 within 6 months. We realized that people were looking for a better way to buy and sell tickets, not just on a broker platform, but with each other. There's also this whole experience thing that comes with buying a ticket. You're going to a game tonight, you're going to buy it from a fellow fan. That whole feeling, that social aspect of actually going to a game was a part of the experience that people wanted to keep. And with a broker platform, even the guys standing outside the dome scalping tickets was kind of an experience when you go to a game like that. So we wanted to kind of bring that into an online and mobile focused world. So we actually built it specifically for mobile first. We don't have a desktop version for it. We're still running on an MVP. But it was because we thought that was what people wanted to do. We thought that if you could do it all from your phone and you have this in your pocket anyways, that's kind of the direction we're going. In the meantime, you have a bunch of teams and venues that are cracking down and saying, hey, no more hard copy tickets, we're going to be 100% digital. If you don't like it, don't buy our tickets. The Dallas Cowboys were the first team to do that, but that's kind of a trend in the market, and it's happening really, really quickly right now. Season ticket holders recently for the Flames specifically, recently got their tickets all converted to digital as well. And all we really needed to do was find a better way to move secondary tickets around. We would figure out a business model after that, said every founder of every startup ever found. And we're working on it. That's kind of the next step from here. So our first MVP product was built stealth mode as we grew the Facebook group last year for, the 2014-2015 season for the Flames. And again, we kind of wanted to focus on a niche, so we didn't want to expand too broadly until we figured out how to solve this problem correctly. And somehow the Flames made the playoffs last year. I don't know if you guys saw. And we were like, yeah, that's really cool. But we're at an 85 maybe percent, complete range for our MVP app, and we still had some manual process that had to go into actually facilitating these transactions, making sure that they didn't bug out and weird things didn't happen, double payments didn't happen, all sorts of weird things. It was very, very minimum viable product. I don't know if that term resonates for everyone, but it sure does for me now. It was like I said, we had to do a lot of stuff on the back end to actually do that, but at the same time the Flames made the playoffs. We had grown this community of people that were expecting something from us. So when the Flames actually secured that playoff spot, we said, you know what? There's no better way than to just, to figure out what we actually should build and what people actually think about it than to just put it out there and see what happens. And that was when we really realized that we were onto something. In 5 home playoff games last year, we had 1,000 people download the app. We processed 35 transactions for about $15,000 worth of tickets in 5 playoff games with a very minimal group that we launched it to. And we said to ourselves, there is something here. I don't think this is exactly what it is, but there's something contagious, there's something viral, there's something social about what we're doing here that people like. We started looking a little bit deeper into the analytics behind why people were using our app and what they were looking for and how often they were coming back. And we realized buyers were coming back almost every other day, refreshing the news feed, refreshing the feed of tickets. They weren't even looking to buy, they were looking for cheaper prices because everyone likes to find the best deal in town, right? It was kind of this weird effect that we didn't really think about. So that happened in the playoffs last year. We turned around. It was just for iOS at that time. We built an Android version over the summer. We built on a few other features, but we quickly realized that our database was bending at the seams. We didn't have much flexibility with what we could do. We couldn't work and iterate fast enough to keep up with the demand from feedback that we were getting from other users. So we quickly realized that that we needed to make a step. So in the meantime, and this is kind of leading back to our announcement that we want to make, we were seeking some funding from grant programs, from private investment. We raised a small amount from friends and family. We really needed to take this idea that we had proven market validation around to the next step. And we're happy to say that as of last week, we secured a $100,000 voucher program from the AITF, Alberta Innovates Tech Features voucher program. So thank you. Do you see on TikTiks are verified tickets? We are the only ones in control of those tickets. That was kind of another assumption that we had, was that season ticket holders would actually give that kind of control over to someone else, and we didn't know if that was going to be the case at all. What we realized though is that it was such a pain in the ass for them to offload tickets that they couldn't use, that if we just said, hey, we'll deal with this for you, they would totally hand that over. So the process that we go through and the way that we gather tickets from season ticket holders verifies that they're the only legitimate tickets that are available for those seats. So that's what we built. It was cool. It did a lot of things. It also broke a lot. It caused us all sorts of headaches. It became somewhat of a cumbersome process to actually manage distribution of tickets. It was an MVP product, and we learned really quickly that once we hit 1,000 users or once we hit 2,000 users, we had outgrown our platform. We needed to rebuild it, and that was how we ended up to where we are now. So what's to come? We spent a lot of time actually scoping out if we had access to some of these funds, what would we actually build? And we came up with a lot of really cool ideas, and we took a very blue ocean approach to it. We didn't want to be limited by funds or our understanding of what we could get access to. We really wanted to take an idea, take a deeper look at what was valuable about what we were doing and how could we take advantage of that. So questions like, well, if we built, if we just expanded into the NHL and did all 30 teams in the NHL, what would that be worth? And those are big numbers. If we did that for NHL, NBA, and NFL, what are those numbers? If we did that for the MLB, what are those numbers? That was kind of our horizontal look at the market. There's all sorts of verticals along this in this industry as well, all sorts of different ways we can solve different problems that exist in it, just from a strictly digital distribution standpoint. What we would rather do is look at how we can kind of box out competitors like Kijiji and Craigslist and Facebook and other ways people are solving problems as opposed to poaching people from StubHub. I think if we can gain enough critical mass on that side of things and say we're the Kijiji or classified section for digital transactions, I think that's a much broader market for us to explore. Yeah. Yeah, one reason Kijiji owns StubHub, or they're owned by the same group, so absolutely, and we absolutely do. We advertise and promote all of our stuff through Kijiji. We go after people that are posting tickets on there. We get in trouble from Kijiji for doing it. We absolutely leverage communities and platforms that already exist.
How about Facebook?
Same. Our Facebook group is still running. It's cannibalizing ourselves a little bit every day, but it's I think still important to maintain that community group, and we use it to advertise too, but we don't just take it away from them. I think that it's a strategic decision we have to think through. We have to understand what the effect is going to be, things like that, but absolutely we leverage it. Yeah, and we can get into it. We can show you the back end. We use Parse. Oh, no? Yeah, okay. So this is also really fun. I'm surprised we didn't talk about this. Parse is a NoSQL database framework. Takes care of a lot of heavy lifting for apps like us to get off the ground and to move. They sent everyone a very random email on January 28th of this year and said, in a year from now, we are no longer going to exist. We're going to spend the next year building migration tools for your database, but we are no longer going to exist in a year. So we were actually in the middle of thinking through a rebuild anyways. We're one of the lucky ones that had this in our lineup for 2016 was a complete database rebuild. There's a lot of apps out there that use it, that leverage it. I think 600,000 was the number or something that all can't be on it anymore after a year. There's other similar platforms, I think Fabric out of Twitter, and I think there's a Google platform now as well. But 600,000 apps literally had to pick up and move in the next 12 months or so, or else they will no longer work. But yeah, we use Parse for a few reasons. It was a scalable framework for us. We could, I think we still haven't paid for any API queries up to this point with about 2,600 users or so. So we could scale without having to worry about the heavy lifting that goes with it and the reconfiguring of the actual servers that we're using to do that. That was super valuable for us. Now we have a better idea of how fast we can grow and all that sort of stuff. So I think for us it's going to be more beneficial to build it custom from the ground up so we can quickly adapt and do what we need to do and do what we want. Experience isn't great. We have to figure out how to balance the user experience side of what we're doing, which is actually really, really important to what we're doing. That's why people like using what we have. With how fast can we iterate and develop and all that sort of stuff. So we have to weigh the pros and cons. We have to figure out what that looks like. But we have a pretty good idea. And I think we're working with smart people and that's.
You think you're working with smart people?
We are working with smart people. Not me. I surround myself with smart people. But we're on the right track, I think. And yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of debate. I think a year ago even this conversation was very different. 2 years ago was very different. Don't even touch anything that's. But I think cross-platform Frameworks have come a long way in that time, and web-based technologies have come a long way in that time. And I think that we're kind of finally plateauing away from it doesn't all need to be native. There's pros and cons to both. There's ways, or there's different times to use either. But I think we've maybe hit a plateau here. What do you think, Ray?
I have no idea. I'd love to be able to look at the future and figure it out.
Either way, that's a good segue into what we think is going to come to next. And we'd love some feedback, some opinions, and some direction here. But one of our biggest things, and again, it's going to play on the experience that we're trying to go after with people. One of our biggest pieces of feedback was from buyers, and it was always like, if those tickets were $10 cheaper, I would totally buy them. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It's your classic Kijiji example where I just want to lowball for the sake of lowballing. But what we do want to do is integrate. Basically, we need to enhance profiles so that there is a little bit more interaction between users. And with that, we actually want to build a bidding or a negotiation platform from within the app. Something that will take all the bad things away from sellers about using Kijiji and make that process of interacting and negotiating more seamless. But creating kind of a fan-to-fan experience between the two people that are transacting. This is, at the end of the day, this is a community experience, and this is something that you have a lot invested in when you go to a hockey game, and part of that is actually finding those tickets from someone that is going to give you a good deal on them. That, I think, is really cool, but open for discussion. Other leagues, venues, teams, there's all sorts of different places we could do. The NCAA down in the States is completely underserved. For every one high school in Canada, there's like 1,000 in the States, and they all have football stadiums and teams, and they all rely on ticket venues and pricing to help them support those teams. Huge market down there that we want to explore. Obviously, major sports are great for us as well. MLB actually owns their own ticket distribution platform, so it's separate from Ticketmaster, but there's a lot of different opportunities in there, and we just have to figure out what we want to do. Corporate ticket management was something that our visionary Johnny came up with, like even before we built anything. But he said, all these people and sponsors, corporations will buy box seats from the Flames, and then they're like, okay, yeah, here's all your tickets, and figure out how to get them into your vendors and your employees and your clients' hands. And usually it's, and I'm sure most people can relate, it's via email. They'll send an email and say, first 20 people to come to my desk today are going to get these tickets. It's going to be awesome. And then there's this mad rush to the front desk, and people would trample each other and all sorts of fun stuff like that. We have interest from the Flames and the Oilers actually to build something that's going to help their box tickets move. Once they get put into these people's hands, they have to have a way to, distribute them. Whether they can sell them or not, that's not even really what they're the most concerned about. They just want them to go to use. So we are working on a joint project with them, possibly that might be really, really cool, but also gives us access to another pool of inventory box tickets that are really cool and interesting and currently not on secondary markets right now. So things like bachelor and bachelorette parties and big group buying and stuff like that could become possible with something like that. International music festival, sporting events, really cool. Also, the Olympics would be awesome. That would be where we want to be, but don't know if this year's the year. But things like that are definitely on our radar. The World Cup of Hockey that's coming to Canada in September in Toronto. Do the same thing. So generally, they'll sell 5 games worth of tickets all at once, and people will only go to 1 or 2 of those games, and then they have the rest of the tickets in their hands, and they don't really care because they were only really buying those 2 games anyways. We want to figure out a way that we can partner with them or become a recommended provider for the secondary market for those tickets. Those kind of events, yeah, really, really cool. We just don't know exactly what it looks like right now, but we need one kind of key benchmark client that wants to work with us to figure out what this should look like and how to do it. So if anyone has any connections with any of those people, any connections with any developers that are interested in what we're doing and can work with cross-platform frameworks and probably PHP and web-based frameworks, that would be cool. We are also raising some private money as well to match our public funding that came from the grant. So we do have an open round available, and I anticipate things are going to move really quickly now that some of the stuff is off the ground. So we actually had a meeting today. We sat down. We hashed out where are our first steps for this 2.0 project, and we're really excited, hoping to have something pushed out in the next month or 2. Which would include a desktop version as well. So, as well as Windows and BlackBerries. No, okay.
What are you looking to raise?
Sorry?
What are you looking to raise?
Where or what are we?
What amount?
So we have $95,000 or $100,000 secured from the government. We're looking to match that, but then we're also looking for an additional raise after that. How fast we want to open that round will depend on investor interest and what we're actually looking to do. But $100,000 to start, and then probably more in the $1 to $3 million range somewhere down the road in the next 6 to 12 months. Yeah. We haven't spent, or we've spent very, very little on paid advertising of any kind this year, and we've grown by about 15.5% month over month, just based on organic growth and users telling their friends about how cool it is. We absolutely leverage social media 100%. Johnny has a couple ongoing things. I know there's some followers and people that probably comment on them. We do things like who's going to score the Flames' first goal tonight, and we get like 25 to 30 people answering this question and engaging, posting it to the top of other people's sites. We do contests, which is illegal on Facebook. That's like tag your friends in this post and you'll get a chance to win something. People love it. I don't know, hockey jerseys and Flames tickets or tickets in general are hot commodities for people. So we try to leverage communities that already exist. And I think one of the things that we've done really, really well is get in front of the right people at the right time. We partnered with Flames Nation and the Nation Network, which is Oilers Nation, Canucks Nation, Jets Nation, biggest hockey blog in Canada right now, to get in front of their users, because those guys and the people that read those articles and those blogs are super engaged and super hardcore fans. Like talking about, you don't even want to read some of the things that they're talking about, but it's really, really intense. We do the same thing with Calgary Puck. We're also a sponsor of a couple other community-focused groups. So that is our in. I think what we're doing differently than anyone else is focusing on the grassroots of the problem. And I think that kind of backdoor in is something that people are not really thinking about. I think there's a huge play in the niche markets right now, and I think access to a huge network called the internet is actually making us a little bit more local focused, and we want to be at the forefront of that kind of thinking for the ticket market. Did I answer it?
Yeah, one more question. So, how do you guys make money?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, we operate pretty much break even. We charge buyers a 10% fee that we're upfront and transparent about every time a transaction goes through. What we want to do is make that a little bit more robust. So sellers, as an example, will post a ticket for free if it's below face value, but if they're going to make a profit off of it, then we're going to charge them to do that. Things like premium management accounts and other ways to create revenue streams with our current user base, and then obviously expand out into different revenue streams as well. So once we have a really awesome ticket distribution core platform, we can white label that and sell it back to the Pan Am Games, the World Cup of Hockey, all of those kind of things too. So the core is really the true value in that, and we're not so much worried about making money right now. We operate break even, which is good enough, and I think that there's a lot of other opportunities to do different things, and we got to figure out where the value is and figure out where to focus. What we really want to do is exactly what you're describing for all sorts of different platforms. So part of that is, from a technical standpoint, we have to integrate with things like StubHub and other places so that we can actually sell tickets on behalf of our sellers more effectively. But that was really our focus from the beginning. What we quickly realized was that sellers just wanted to know that someone was trying to sell this ticket on their behalf. When they posted it on StubHub or Ticketmaster Exchange or something else, they quickly realized that they were just one ticket in a huge pool that already existed. And what they really liked about what we did was that we were hustling for them. So if we can automate that hustle and say, like, yeah, you posted on TikTiks, and we're going to post it on Kijiji, and we're going to go after all these markets, and we're going to sell this ticket, we're going to give you a 50% chance of doing that. Yeah, that's definitely the focus. We do this right now on a manual basis. Basically, when tickets come in, and we promote through our platform and through our community and through our networks that we have tickets that are available. If you go on the TikTiks app right now, you'll see that the tickets are available for the next game, which I think is on Wednesday. Before Wednesday, we're going to spend a lot of time actually posting those tickets, going to Kijiji, trying to find buyers for them, trying to actually offload them, all that sort of stuff.
So it's not just the TikTiks platform, you're going beyond?
We do go beyond, yeah. We tap into Kijiji. We have a Facebook group, obviously, that we're still managing with about 5,000 people in it. 5,000 person group in Calgary. We have another one that's a couple hundred people in Edmonton that we're growing. So
could someone tweet you, hey, TikTiks?
Yeah. And actually, there's another similar group called Twickets out of the UK. Yeah, I know, right? It's interesting because they do something very similar. They basically just provide a platform for people to exchange tickets. Scalping laws are much stronger regulated, in Europe, as opposed to here. So it's like, do not scalp. You will get you will get busted. They will charge you, all that sort of stuff. So they do something very, very similar, and they started as interestingly enough, they started as a Twitter account. And all they were doing was like, people would tweet at them and say like, I have this ticket for sale, and they say, okay, that's great, I'm going to tweet it out to our platform. They grew a user base around Twitter. We grew one around Facebook, and they turned around, got some investment, and actually built a platform that did everything else really well too. So we are aware of them. We're actually trying to model ourselves and learn as much as we can from them without making those same mistakes. And they're a good role model for us to keep an eye on.
Have you guys looked at auction-based pricing?
Yeah.
kind of pricing?
Yeah. Auction.
Oh, auction-based, okay.
Yep.
Cool star.
I don't know. We have to do some more exploration. We have to figure out how this whole, when I say negotiation, bidding, auction type platform, I think that there is some fundamental differences between what eBay does for products versus what we do for digital. So we just have to think it through. I don't know exactly what it looks like right now. I don't know what the execution is on it right now, but it's something that that we really, really like. We really want to explore. Number one piece of feedback from our users is like, we want a little bit more interaction. We got to figure out a way to do that elegantly without letting them bypass TikTiks altogether. So it's a little bit of a massaging process from here, but yeah, I mean, auction, bidding, negotiation, I think that there's a lot of keywords in there. We don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's definitely on our radar. At the end of the day, it's opinion-based and it's vision-focused. So you're going to pitch something to someone, and how much you can convince them you're worth is what you're worth. It's different in different cities. It's different in Calgary versus Vancouver versus Toronto versus San Francisco. There's more money in San Francisco, so generally startups are getting higher valuations. That's just the way it works. You have to.
These days,
Yeah. What? How much?
they're going down is what I'm trying to.
Well, because there's a bit of a bubble, right? Yeah, private equity bubble.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
alluding to.
scarier than the big public APO bubble or IPO bubble. But the reality is yes, they're going down the valuations, but the valuations in Calgary are like, it's hard to find a good core group here besides the VA angels are probably the key one, that or angels or individual angels specifically that are willing to put down the kind of money for an angel investment. VCs won't even really look at you until you've proven 3 or 2 out of 3 main risk factors, which is team and market validation. They want to deal with you when you're scaling. And that's the last thing that they have to prove right for that investment, right? So it's a very different mindset from a VC to a angel to friends and family. Friends and family are going to give you money because they love you. Yeah. No angel's going to give you money because they love you. They're going to give you money because they think you can turn around and make them money off of it, and they like you as an entrepreneur or like your idea. So there's different stages. Crowdfunding is playing a role in all of this. There's all these gaps that exist in the funding market. But the reality is, get as far as you possibly can in validating your idea before you ever talk to anyone about money, because you will increase the value of yourself and your company in the meantime. So my honest piece of advice, Jason, is great with, 1.6 million active users or something ridiculous. Hasn't taken any outside money. It's the kind of thing that, like, if you can get to that point, you're in a much better position to negotiate when you do need money, because you don't need their money, right? You're
Do
kind
you really want to be in business with a dragon at the end of the day?
You don't.
but sometimes you need to, right? And I think the best piece of advice that I ever got was, don't take on money unless it's going to help you accelerate or achieve a milestone that you can see in your near future. Don't take it just because you're going to need money somewhere down the road. Doesn't mean you shouldn't always be talking to potential investors, right? There's differences, but what you're trying to do is kind of lay seeds down, and then when you get to a certain point where you're going to need some money, I'm going to need $1 million, and here's what we're going to do with it. We're going to turn around, we're going to build this out, we're going to go after these markets, and we're going to get into Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto. And that all of a sudden is going to raise the value. But I have a much clearer plan of action with that money, which investors love. They really don't want you to be like, I don't know how much I need, and I don't really know what I'm going to do with it when I get it. It's like, ooh.
Screw up your pitch by saying
Yeah, I'm not really sure. So the reality for us was that we do have an open round right now. We're trying to match what we've gotten in private grant money. After that, we know we're going to need more money. So that money that we're gathering right now is probably going to come from someone that's going to help access other investment markets down the road. This is.
Game 7 tickets.
Is there anyone from Ticketmaster here? Okay, this is a funny story. This is cool. Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, I believe, all totally cool. You can sell above face value, not a problem. Ontario you can't, Quebec you can't as well. The reason you can't in Ontario is because Ticketmaster literally bought their own tickets, put it on Live Nation or some other website, and sold it for above the ticket value that they created for it in the first place. So the government was like, whoa, you can't do that, you're controlling the market. And they're like, yeah, but we're huge and no one really cares because no one else is in we're a monopoly anyways. So in Ontario, they came down and they said, you cannot sell tickets for above face value. That is illegal. Don't do it. They're not going after the people at the door scalping tickets. They're going after the big guys that are controlling the primary market. I think that'll change, to be honest. I think it'll change, and I think that there's lots of opportunity for startups like us to come in and do things differently in a way that is dynamic in the way that we price tickets, just like airlines. I think that the value of a ticket is really, really interesting because it changes from the time that they release it as a season ticket to the time that the first game starts, to the time that Connor McDavid gets injured, to the time that the Flames do or do not make the playoffs. All of those sort of things factor into the price and the value of a ticket. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that getting factored into the price.
You good?
I'm good. You guys good? Yeah.